And welcome everyone to the Consent Techniques for Group Events webinar. It's an honor to have you here. If you could have events that were safer for everyone who attends, would you want that? If there were a few adjustments that you could make to the events that you put on that would bring in more people, would you make those adjustments if you totally agreed with those adjustments? If you're like me, the answer is yes. I want to thank you so much for your choice to be here today. And welcome Timothy from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I want to thank you for your choice to be here today. There are many things you could be choosing to do right now, and for whatever reason, you decided to put some attention on this issue of consent during group events. And that tells me something about you as a leader. It tells me that you care for the people who attend your events or for the events that you are going to put on, and that you're interested in investing in your own development as an event leader, as a professional in this, in whatever industry. And in fact, you're welcome to add what work that you do or what events that you already put on, or perhaps are you looking to put on. I'd be very curious to know what that is. As you know, my name is Jean Franzlau, and I'm the founder of Cuddle Sanctuary. I'm an event leader and a professional cuddler. And Cuddle Sanctuary, we've been featured in the media for the events that we put on and the professional cuddling services we provide. We've put on over 300 events since we started offering events in the public in 2014. We've served over 700 clients. And we've had the chance to interact with the media and to talk about this unique work that we do in wonderful places like Good Mythical Morning and Rolling Stone and most recently Dr. Phil. And we are regularly adding events and trainings on our calendar all the time, including an advanced professional cuddling training next year. So there's a lot going on, and people often ask me, how did I get started in this world? And my story is that I noticed myself getting depressed all the time, and I thought I was just one of those people who was depressed regularly. And I had no idea that I was actually touch deprived. I found myself traveling a lot of hotel rooms around the country and sometimes even abroad. And, as a speaker, and I found myself lonely. And so there's a connection between touch and loneliness. And when I saw a photo of a cuddle party in an in-flight magazine, I was really intrigued and I felt a sense of longing. And I kept looking for events like that, and I just couldn't find anything. And when I finally found an event that included cuddling, I was happy. And I had a fantastic time. I noticed myself feeling connected and authentic, and I enjoyed the people that I met. I felt safe. The boundaries and consent guidelines were easy for me to understand, and everyone else got them. And I found myself spooning with somebody in front of me and behind me, and I just couldn't believe how lucky I was. We didn't have to date. We didn't have to invest a whole bunch of time. We could just give each other this wonderful connection with no strings attached. It was beautiful. And so I wanted to attend another event soon. And I found another event, and somebody came up to me at that event. I will say that event was guided differently. There were some guidelines that were kind of given in the beginning, but people could come in and out however they wanted. So some people came to the event who didn't hear the beginning guidelines. So it was really unclear who knew what. But I was gung-ho. I really wanted to be there and have an experience. And so, as you'll see on the screen, somebody said, can I give you a shoulder rub or a massage? And I was like, yes, I would love that. And so I turned around to present my shoulders for this massage. And he took the top of my t-shirt and he stretched my t-shirt over my shoulders, popping some of the buttons in the stitching of the t-shirts because he wanted access to my skin. And then he proceeded to give me a massage. And I was sort of like this woman in this picture. I was trying to enjoy myself. I was trying to talk myself into that I was getting a massage. It was for free. Isn't this great? Why don't you enjoy yourself? And the truth is, I felt actually stressed. What was going on in my mind was, do I feel safe? Was that okay that he did that? I guess it's okay, but I didn't like that. And why did he do that? And things like that. And that's another word for that is vigilance. My vigilance was high, and so I wasn't able to actually relax and enjoy the massage. And I learned an important lesson. And maybe you've learned this lesson as well. I'd love to hear. But I learned that just because an event sounds cuddling or sounds safe does not necessarily mean it will be led in such a way that creates an environment, a container, an environment for boundary setting and consent, and that it will actually be safe, and that I need to actually watch out for myself at such events and be a better consumer. And so from that point forward, I became very curious. I wanted to know what creates an environment of safety and what detracts from it. Now, I should mention to you that I have a background in corporate training. I would teach people about stress management, communication skills. I still do that work. And so as soon as I attended a few of these events, because I know group dynamics and I know how to guide exercises, I felt confident that I could begin leading them myself, and I began to do so. And I used the events as a research laboratory. I tried and tested and noticed and observed and got feedback and took that feedback and kept honing my events because I had a goal, and that goal is that my events would be known for how safe that they are, that people who even have issues around touch, such as trauma, could trust that this was a space that they could feel a place of healing, a place where they could practice receiving and giving touch, or even saying no to offers of touch, and expand their comfort and safety and awareness, and expand everybody's touch repertoire. And you know, this is exactly what happened, is that over the years, we started to get calls. I've had a therapist whose expertise is post-traumatic stress contact us to learn more about what we do because she wants to refer her clients to us, or somatic therapists are interested in our work. We've been contacted by sexual surrogates who want to refer clients to us to learn about platonic touch, along with sex therapists and people who are professional caregivers who are interested in having their clients receive more touch. And I will say, I'm also really proud that some of the people who contact us are caregivers, are the people like therapists who do this work and want a place that they can relax, where they can let their guard down and receive and get nurturing and nourishing touch. We have been contacted and asked to give events from as close as San Diego. We're based here in LA, and as far away as Baltimore. One time we got a call from China. Some folks were interested possibly in our training. So I'm like, wow, the word is getting out about platonic touch and about consent techniques, which is what we're here to talk about today. And the things that I learned over the course of giving so many of these events are baked into the certification program that I lead for event leaders. And a student would need to master these techniques in order to be qualified for certification. And I'm delighted and proud to be able to share some of these techniques with you today. So here's what we're going to go over in our time together. What are some things that you can say as an event leader that will alert your students and participants to know how you feel about consent, that matters to you? And what kind of activities and things can you do to empower your participants to say no to offers of touch that they don't want? And what can you do physically in your gestures and your behavior and how you are at your events that will also communicate a lot? Because so much of being a leader is in what you do, not just what you say. And then we're going to even have some chances to practice. You can have some things you can do for homework if you'd like, so that you can take these techniques and put them into use right away. That's my goal for you. Now, I'd love for you to consider what you think that these consent techniques should be. And when I say, what do you think? It's because I know that you're already somebody who has thought about these issues. You already have wisdom about these issues. Otherwise, you wouldn't be investing your time in a consent webinar. So in the chat, I'd like for you to think about the events that you've led, the events that you've attended, and your thoughts about consent. What do you think should be a consent technique? And I'll be quiet for a moment as you consider that and you enter your thoughts into the chat. And keep in mind that I am here to say yay and bravo. I'm not here to go, that's not right. I'm here to support. I'm here to add on to what you already know and to provide value. So I am your servant. So I'm not here to embarrass anybody for offering ideas. If there's anything I ever disagree with, I will certainly go, let's debate that. Let's talk about this. Let's make this a juicy and robust conversation. So as you consider what the consent techniques that you think should be included in events, I'm going to go ahead and continue on, and I'll keep my eye on the chat and your thoughts. So I wanted to mention to you that I am committed to giving you gems, some information you're going to want to use right away. And there's always another level of mastery. And so if you find yourself excited by this topic, if you would like to take your workshop leader or event leader skills to the next level, I will take a few minutes to tell you about our upcoming certification training for event leaders of Cuddle events. And there's no pressure to join that training, but if you want to, bring it up a notch and learn techniques that you'll probably use for the rest of your career or however long that you lead events, I encourage you to consider it. Now, one quick question I have for you before I dive into the content. As you probably know, this webinar is free. It's my way of offering something of value to our community. And if you find what we go over today valuable and useful, I'm going to offer this monthly. And so please feel free to tell your colleagues, friends, people who lead events or who might work with children, students, anybody where consent might be an issue. I am honored that you're here today and that you might refer people that you know to this. They could just go to cuddlesanctuary.com and click on training, and they can find our free webinars that way. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for your referrals. So as promised, we're going to dive into the content. And I would like to give you a key. This is the key to the whole webinar. If you leave this session with this one point clarified in your mind, then I will consider my job like my time well spent, your time well spent, and a job well done. I would pat myself on the back. So this is the key to this webinar, and something that I think you'll want to remember is that when it comes to touch, give your participants options. When it comes to touch, give people choices. So I'm going to give you a way to remember this. And as many people learn by doing a physical gesture while they say a memorable thing. And so I'm going to show you, and I'll describe it to you as well. So I'm going to clasp my hands like this. When it comes to touch, give people choices. So do this with me. It'll help you remember it. And you can say it out loud if you're somewhere where you can do that. If not, you can say it in your mind. But when it comes to touch, give people choices. And all my fingers wiggling, facing upward represent all of the choices that I want to give my participants, that they know that they've got themselves options. So thank you very much for that. And I'm going to count down from 5 down to 1. So I'm going to give you 5 consent techniques. And I'm going to count backwards because the number 1 technique is a really strong one. It's simple and mighty. And it might actually bring more people to attend your events. And if you're somebody who charges for your events, that's meaningful. Or if you're somebody who also wants to have a big impact, and if you're going to put the effort together to rent a space, to market your events, to describe to people what it is, to show up and do your best, by golly, it tells me you want to make an impact in your world and with your community. And if you're like me, it would be nice that you could impact more people rather than less people. And so consent technique number 1 might help you impact more people because they will say yes to your event, when without that technique, they might pass. So let's continue. We're going to begin with consent technique number 5, and here it is. Make touch optional. Doesn't that seem obvious? That of course adults shouldn't feel pressured to touch anybody at your events, right? And yet adults can easily feel pressured if they have an event leader who's like, do this, or this is the way to do it, or you will do this, you will be paired, now you will touch. All of that commanding type of language, which certainly shows your, the power, you can be powerful in your role, but there is a responsibility with that power, which is, in my opinion, if there's touch related to the events you put on, that people know that they have an option to opt out. Now, my hope for you and for me when I lead events is that people can not only feel empowered to opt out, but also that they won't feel socially punished. Now, what do I mean by social punishment? I mean that if I'm like, oh, you mean you're not going to do it? Well, okay. I could be judgy or look at them in a way, or I could get disorganized and stressed, like, I don't know what to do when somebody says they're not going to be participating. If I expect that people might say no, thank you, and I have plans for how I will organize the exercises or whatever we're doing in case somebody needs to back away or step away or not participate at all, it will feel like a flow, and people will see that it doesn't rattle me. I'm happy to have you do what's best for you. This is the attitude of a great consent positive leader. And so I want to share with you an exercise. I call it the no thank you exercise. Maybe you've done it before at the events you've attended. Maybe you've led it before. And this exercise is empowering for everyone in your room, in your event. And it reminds them that they are encouraged to say no thank you to offers of touch. It goes like this. One person will ask the other for some kind of touch, like, can I hold your hand? Can I caress your face? May I give you a hug? The other person says, no, thank you. And then the first person says something nice, like, oh, okay. Or, oh, thanks for taking care of yourself. Or, I'm glad you know your boundaries. And both people in this pairing get a chance to practice asking and saying no, and then being cool about it. So it is an exercise that I typically do in pairs. And it takes usually about a minute or two to explain it, a minute for them to do the exercise, and then a minute or two for them to, what I call debrief, where they say what it was like to do the exercise. They have a chance to explain to each other and to you their experience doing the exercise. And I'm giving you that time frame of a minute, a couple minutes, and another minute, because if you're like me, there's a lot you want to get done at your events. And so you get to decide, is a 5-minute investment going to be worth it for you to insert something like this or this at your event? So you get to decide the investment of those few minutes. I'm a big fan of it, so we do it at every single Cuddle Sanctuary orientation. In fact, a person can't attend our social events without practicing this skill, because everyone who attends our events knows that everyone else knows how to say no and receive a no, and it creates an environment of safety. So we're going to actually practice this together. You are welcome to, I'm going to see if I can make myself big on this screen. Hold on 1 second here. I'm going to press a button and it makes me seem big on the screen. I don't know if you see me big on the screen, but you're welcome to try to do that, is to just sort of have me take over the screen. Here we go. Sorry about that. You can sort of have me wide. Here we go. And I'm going to, one more second. Yeah. I'm going to say to you, I'm going to ask you for a hug. And if you're alone, you're welcome to out loud, as if we're right in the room with each other, say, no, thank you. And then I will respond, and you got to feel how it feels. And I'm going to do this 3 times in a row. So I'll ask, I'll pause as if I'm waiting for your response, and then I'll respond to your no thank you. And we'll do it a few times. So let's give it a try. And it might feel silly because I don't really see you, but I'm going to look in your eyes because I'm looking at the camera. And we'll try to make this as real as possible. Let's begin. May I give you a hug? Okay. Let's try it again. Would you hug me? Thank you for taking care of yourself. And let's try it again. Can we share a hug? That's totally fine. Okay, so I'm going to make myself a little smaller again here. So here's my question for you. Now that you've practiced it or perhaps seen it done, why is this so powerful? And it is powerful. The participants who come to my events sometimes will do this again and again to practice. They'll even come back. Yes, they like to cuddle, but they also want to practice this skill. Some will say that it has changed how they interact with bosses and spouses and business partners, colleagues, clients. Why is that? And the answer, you could think about that for a moment, and the answer is that many people have never been given positive reinforcement for having boundaries around touch. Some people have been judged for having boundaries around touch, or they're given a disappointed, like, oh, you've hurt my feelings. And instead, we're being like, oh, I'm so glad you know your boundaries. It's wonderful. We're being positive about it, and people really appreciate it. It's also great for people who need to practice receiving a no in a safe environment where they can feel the feelings about it and then talk about those feelings. So there's a dual lesson in this exercise. It's being classy when somebody says no to me, and it's practicing saying no to touch. I think both parts of that equation are critical. So, Cynthia, I see your question about, and I'll let everyone know that you were asking for a copy of the slides. I can make a PDF of it. I was going to send you an email later anyway, so I'm making a mental note. In fact, I'm just going to lift up my laptop here and make an actual note, because nobody's ever asked that before. PDF of slides. My pleasure. So let's continue on. If you would like an exercise for later, I'd like to recommend that you write a script for how you yourself would lead the no thank you exercise. That will help it solidify it in your mind and adapt it to your own events and your own style. I had my style, you saw that. But what will be your style in doing it? And I recommend that if you are putting on events regularly, and if you really like this no thank you exercise, implement it right away. You don't have to do it perfectly. Just say, hey folks, I'm going to share with you an exercise I just learned at a consent webinar. Let's practice it together, and just do your best and get better at it. What better way to get better at it with your participants? They can see you in a state of growth and learning. That's my style, at least. Okay, so the next consent technique we've already nailed, number 5. Let's move on to consent technique number 4. Make sure people know they can change their mind and provide them a pathway to do so. This provides freedom for participants, because they know that they can push their comfort zone and try something and then change their mind and try something else. So it creates an environment for experimentation. I like this picture that you're seeing on the screen of a child hiding behind, maybe that's their mom or their caregiver, because I am like that kid. I like to have safe adventures. So I want to like come out into the world and then, maybe take a retreat, and then come out in the world and then take a retreat. And that's what grown-ups are like, not just children, grown-ups too, when it comes to taking risks and trying new things. Some people at your events will be trying stuff that you lead for the very first time, and there's a vulnerability in that. And so making sure, giving them the options to change their mind is useful. So how do you do that? How do you present that pathway? And one way to do it is give people the language for changing their mind. You can say something like, thanks, I feel full, or I'm going to do something else now, or thanks for trying this with me, and I'm glad we tried this, bye. And in the chat, you are welcome to put in the things that you say when you want to gracefully detach from touch or from a conversation. I love hearing good ideas and adding them to my repertoire, so feel free to add that in the chat. What this does when I'm at my events and I give people this language is it becomes part of the etiquette, it becomes part of the mores of our events. Everybody knows, like, this is what we do. Yours would be in French. Oh, I'd love to see. I would love to read what that is. And thank you, Ali. Okay, so we're going to move on here, and you're welcome to continue to add things in the chat. So, what is consent technique number 3? It's to teach what I call the ask and wait method, or you can create something like the ask and wait method. The ask and wait method is an improvement on the phrase ask before you touch. As you can imagine, I'm not a big fan of ask before you touch. And you're welcome to put in the chat why you would guess that I don't like ask before you touch, but it has something to do with the fact that ask before you touch is like a warning. It's basically touch is happening. The ask and wait method is that you keep your body language neutral and let the person, like, give the person some space so that they can decide if they're wanting that hand holding, that hug, if they're wanting that snuggle, that caress, that spoon. They may or may not, or they may want to negotiate, and that's totally welcome. Now, as you can see on the screen, it says, let me help you remember that. Because it's not ask before you touch, it's ask and wait. That is the gesture, and I welcome you to say it with me and do this gesture. And so it's ask, which is I'm using my mouth, and then wait, which means it's time for me to listen. Beyond listening, the neutral body language is critical. And by neutral body language, what I mean by that is, like, I'm going to look you right in the eyes, I'm going to look right in the camera, and I'm going to ask non-verbally for a hug. I'm giving you puppy dog eyes and putting my hands out or my arms out. It's really hard to resist the hands out and all of that gesturing when a person actually doesn't want any touch. And so that neutral body language is really, really important, so that I'm not having, it's already a challenge to ask for touch, because many people would prefer to just be nice and just say yes. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So when you use your words and ask and you use a gesture, that is very hard for many people to resist. I'll put it that way. And what I'm going for here is that two people are connecting because they're both all in, that they're both wanting that connection. And I'm guessing that you would want that too, that the participants at your events would want that too, because when one person wants a hug and another person says yes but doesn't really want it, the hug is going to be not as good as if both people wanted it. The person who didn't want the hug is now being touched and they didn't really want it. And probably that first person possibly can feel that. I think there's a real difference in hugs, and I'd love to hear your experience with this. When I'm hugging somebody who really wants to hug me, I can feel their heart. I can feel their happiness of being with me in that moment. And when somebody doesn't, I can feel their anxiety. I can feel their stress. And nobody's having fun in that moment. So now you know the ask and wait method. And before we move on to number 2, I want you to think about, how would you incorporate something like that at your events? You're welcome to use the ask and wait method, and you can call it the ask and wait method if you'd like. You're welcome to say, I learned this from Gina at Cuddle Sanctuary. I'd be honored for that. What matters to me most is the fact that your participants know that a technique like that exists and that they can count on each other to ask and wait if you feel like that would be a good match for your events. I know that at my events, it's a really good match. It's what we do. I should mention, though, that there's a difference between events and one-on-one professional cuddling. I may use the ask and wait method for certain clients, but most of my clients, we have a comfort and a rapport with each other. We have experience with each other and a lot of trust. And we can use a much more casual touch technique where we don't have to keep asking. Instead, we share what we want and we tell each other, oh, can we adjust? Can we move? We stay in communication the whole time, and we can non-verbally touch each other. So there's a difference. So I'm not suggesting that the ask and wait is the only method for all of us for the rest of our lives. I'm just saying, at my events and maybe at yours. So let's continue on with consent technique number 2. Create a place for people to take a break without actually having to leave your events. Think about that. Have you ever attended an event where there was like a quiet area or a place that they say you can go over here and just watch? If you haven't, boy, I'm excited to suggest this to you and for you to witness it in action. It's very satisfying to create a place like this at my events and watch people use it. It's really cool. So what people say at Cuddle Sanctuary is they love having a retreat, a place that they can go to for solitude, for reflection. The etiquette that we explain to everybody is, if somebody is there, leave them alone. Don't offer any touch to them. Don't begin a conversation. And also don't worry about them. They're there because they're taking good care of themselves. And at Cuddle Sanctuary, we call it the Solo Salon. I remember the day that we named it. We had the area set up, and there was a writer in the room and an editor, and she goes, I said, what should we call this? And she said, the Solo Salon, and that stuck. That's what we called it from that point forward. Now, you'll notice in the photo that the Solo Salon, there are pillows. We try, first of all, at Cuddle Sanctuary, we name it. We have a sign up, and we try to make it an attractive place to relax and hang out. And I'm going to encourage you to make your area, your quiet area, an attractive place to be. It's not meant to be a punishment. It's meant to be a lovely place to be where somebody can observe the event without having to continue to participate. I'd like to tell you what beautiful moments have evolved from having a solo salon. One time, a woman came to our event, and we were doing some of the exercises, and one of them is called Hug No Hug. There's no touch required at any time. And typically, my explanation that there's no touch required is enough for people to feel safe. In this case, this one woman, she was there for the first time, she came up to me and she stared at me while everyone was doing the exercise, and her eyes started to water and her eyes got really big. And I said, are you having a traumatic response to this exercise? And she nodded. And I said, I want to introduce you to this area over here called the Solo Salon. And I described what it was. And she goes, can I go there now? I said, absolutely. She went over to the Solo Salon and she didn't leave it. And I will say that part of me was concerned. I'm like, does she know she's allowed to leave the Solo Salon? Like, does she know that? And she did know that. At the very end of the event, we have a closing circle, and she left the solo salon and she joined the circle. And with tears in her eyes, she said to the group, "Thank you for showing me what consent looks like." She and I shared a very meaningful and moving conversation after that night, and she explained her background and how meaningful it was for her to be able to witness safe touch. She came back several times and said that it was life-changing. These are the moments that I, wake up in the morning and show up, to lead an event for. It's very, very satisfying, and I would love for you to experience, maybe you've already had experiences such as this, but the solo salon is like yet another thing that you can add to your toolkit of things to do to create safety. So I want to pause for a moment as you consider what we've gone over so far. And you're welcome in the chat to add your comments and to also mention concerns that you might have about any of the techniques we've discussed. And you're also welcome to ask questions. So I'm going to pause while you consider what those questions might be. And also, you're welcome to share what activities do you already lead, or what events are you about to lead that brought you to this webinar, so we can get to know each other. We have somebody from Long Beach and Lancaster and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and as far away as Montreal. So it seems that this would be good material for an introduction to consent before events. I agree. This is what we do before our events. We go over this stuff before anybody can attend our events. It's a requirement, or what might be called a prerequisite. Yep. Yeah, and even in our event descriptions, we list these things as well. So we try to share it in a lot of different ways so people know before they come in that they're going to learn about consent and boundaries. And it's an interesting surprise for people that a cuddle event, which people in their mind think is boundaryless, is actually one of the most safe and boundaried and contained experiences when it's run well, that you can attend. So I love surprising people, giving people that happy surprise. So I'll keep my eye on the chat as you consider any other questions, comments, or concerns. And so you have a practical question. You have I have a room that's 20 by 10. Do you have any idea how many people I could invite? I'm trying to picture that. That sounds kind of big, actually. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking 15 people. So, Ali, when you think about that room, imagine imagine yourself in that room, and if 15 people could sit in a circle comfortably. And if you could fit 15, and you could sort of do that by sitting in that room and imagine somebody next to you, next to them, or put out pillows, but put out those pillows in a circle, like 15 of them, and see if 15 can fit and there's room behind those people, like plenty of room on either side. I think you'll find that at least 15 can attend. And I will tell you that if you're just starting your cuddle community, I am hoping that you will have 15 people come. I am hoping that your marketing is so good and people know you and all of that. Lately, Cuddle Sanctuary has not had 15 people attending, and we've been doing this for a few years, and maybe it's because of the summer. It's been very hot. People don't think about cuddling as much when it's, warmer weather. But we've had, between 9 and 13 lately. So I am hoping that the events you put on have 13, 15, 20, 30, 100. Oh, that would be exciting. As we do more touch events and more people feel safe with them, I think we're paving the way together. You're very, very welcome. Okay, so as promised, I was going to share with you for a couple minutes about the next 3-day training. It's in April of next year, April 26th to 28th, and you'll see a picture of somebody diving because it is a deep dive into several different topics. First of all, it's Cuddle event leader training. And so we spend the first 2 solid days of the training learning the 12 elements that make for a safe cuddle event, including things like paired practice, the 4 cuddle safe concepts, the hug, no hug activity, and many other things. There are demonstrations and exercises, discussions and practices. And on the 3rd day, the students lead an event for the public. And that's part of what we call the practicum. And by day 3, you're excited and ready for it. And that's my job, to make sure that you're ready for it. People have come from as far away as Germany and to our trainings and across the country, most recently from Florida. So it's worth the flight, and I invite you to consider to join me. Oh, the next one happening is going to happen in Southern California. I'm still sorting out the location for it, and maybe in Los Angeles. And if you'd like to learn more about it, you can just go to cuddlesanctuary.com and click on training, and there it will be. So I'm going to share with you the final consent technique, and then there are bonuses. So stick around, because I have stuff to give you. So I promised you that the number 1 consent technique might actually bring more people to your events. And here it is. What is your policy regarding touch? Don't keep it a secret. Tell people. So whether it's on your postcard or your website, your description of your event on a flyer, or wherever that it is that you post, let attendees know that you have a policy about touch. You might think that my policies about touch or my guidelines are a little bit wordy. I welcome you to go to my website, cuddlesanctuary.com, click on events, and look at how I describe my events. It's many paragraphs. You might have a more succinct style of describing your events. I've been told mine are a little bit wordy. I've decided to use more words and video to help people feel safer. The more they know I feel, the better. But your policy might just be 3 words. No touch required. Ding. So why do I think this will make such a big deal? Why did I make this the number 1 consent technique? The answer is that some people will look at your event and be a little scared. Maybe they have social anxiety. Maybe they have anxiety about learning new things. Maybe it's the very topic of your event that has them feeling nervous. But they're reading about your event with possibly some worries. And it could have to do with touch. So if you can put them at ease, that you have their back, that you are paying attention, you're a consent positive educator or leader, that could make the difference between them going, maybe next year, or maybe next time, or maybe some other event that seems a little safer. Instead, they will choose your event. You who care so much about consent that you're here today. You who will add techniques so that people understand boundaries and know how to use them. So I want them to come to your events, so consider this technique. Now, I promised you a bonus, but actually it's 2 bonuses. Are you ready? The first one is the Cuddle game. You may have seen this on my website. I'm going to offer it to you for free. The Cuddle game is a fun way for people to learn how to have a platonic cuddle experience together. Oh no! Yes, I saw that. Yes, Ellie, I saw that you bought it. Thank you, and I'd love your feedback about it. It includes 2 videos and some PDFs with gamified points and instructions, also some bonuses in there, for example, what to do if your cuddle buddy gets aroused, or if you get aroused, some techniques around that. Typically, I charge $14.95 for it in US dollars. For you, I'm going to send it along for free. And so, Ellie, you're welcome with the one that I send along for free. You're welcome to give it away as a gift if you'd like. And It's particularly good for partners who only cuddle like before or after sex. Like this can like change up their repertoire. It's good for cuddle buddies who are cuddling for the first time. So all that good stuff. Now, how are you going to get this? You're going to get the Cuddle game via email. So please keep an eye on your email. I'm going to send it to you later on today. My email address is Jean, like a pair of pants, Jean, at cuddlesanctuary.com. And I'm telling you that because maybe you want to put me in your address book, because then the email will actually make it into your inbox and not to your spam box. Sometimes the word cuddle is so freaky that spam finders just go right into the spam with it. So you might be like, where's my game? I want my bonus. And it will be sitting in your spam inbox. So I wanted to give you another bonus as well. It has to do with the event leader training happening in April of next year. Typically, the tuition for this 3-day training is $695 because you are here investing in your professional development. I'd like to offer you a $100 discount. Here's how that would work. As you know, I'm going to send you an email. That email is going to include a PDF, thank you, Cynthia, with the slides to this presentation. It will also include a link to the Cuddle game. And at the bottom of the email will be a nice description about what happens during this training. I will also remind you in this email that you are qualified for a $100 discount. So just keep that email. And when you apply to the training, which I recommend you do as soon as you feel interested in it, we can continue a conversation about it. And then just mention, like Jean said, I get $100 off, and then keep that email. You do not need to be committed to the training in order to apply. You can just simply fill out the form. It alerts me that you're interested, and then we can have a conversation on the phone or via Zoom or Skype, and you can learn more about it and ask your questions. It would be my pleasure to spend that time with you. So that was bonus number 2. Where does that leave us? I'm looking at the time. Oh, good. The timing is really good. So that leaves us at the end. Now, I set aside an hour for this webinar just in case that you had questions. So you are welcome to think about questions you have, specific things about your events or the things you're going to be leading. And in the meanwhile, let's talk about how to stay in touch. As you probably know when you read about this webinar, as I have your email address now, thank you. And I will send you our blog on a weekly basis. My colleague Faye Ryan and I are blogging about issues of consent, things that I think that you will care about. You can always opt out at any time, of course. But you can also stay in touch with us on Facebook, Cuddle Sanctuary, Twitter, Cuddle Sanctuary, or Instagram, Cuddle Sanctuary. I'm happy to say that we have different content in each of those platforms. So if you want to see different stuff, feel free to visit us in those different places. We have so many different things about cuddling and cute animals cuddling and things that will make you smile, but also research about cuddling and events that we're putting on and things that we're doing out there in the world. And also we post about our certified event leaders and our certified professional cuddlers. We'll let you know what they're up to and where they are in the world so you can find them and meet them, your colleagues in the world of touch. So I'm going to pause for a moment to see and I'm going to think to myself of questions I sometimes get. Yeah, so I'm seeing a question about closing circles. I'm a big fan of opening and closing circles. So having one is my first suggestion. To me, the opening circle and the closing circle bookend your event. It creates a container that everything inside here in terms of time is the event and everything not inside here is not the event. And it helps to create a sense of safety, like a womb for your participants. Closing circle can include insights where people can share what they learned. They can share how they feel. They can share things that they're proud of about what they experienced or what they want to take with them out in the world. Sometimes you can go person by person and give people a chance to say what's on their mind. What we learn in our event leader training is about keeping control of the group. And I say that because some people might want to take the reins, like you're the leader, and they might want to take the reins of leadership. and they might talk for too long. Like you've had this sweet event and everyone's feeling so great, and then one person talks for 10 minutes. Well, that bums everybody's high. So there are techniques that you can use to control that. I'm going to share one of them with you now. I might say, we're going to go around person by person. Now, I know that there's 30 of us, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to share just one word. You're welcome to share a word of how you are feeling, or maybe you can share this. I leave here with blank. And I'm going to begin, so I'm going to say, I leave here with trust. Let's go around and let everybody share their one word. And what you've just done, or what you've witnessed me do, is I've let people know what the etiquette is for sharing. And chances are 30 people will get to share, and it will take 2 minutes. Versus if I just said, hey, tell me how you feel, person number 2 might take 10 minutes. Person number 30 is starting to get very stressed out because this closing circle is going to last an hour. Nobody wants a closing circle that lasts an hour. So I hope that that's helpful. I hope that adds some value. I'm going to wrap up now by saying thank you and goodbye, and let's keep in touch. Respond to my email. I'd love to hear your feedback about this webinar and anything else you'd like to share with me. And Ali and everyone, I'd love to hear what you like or even what you don't like about the Cuddle game. I would love to hear your opinion about that because I always want to improve. You are very, very welcome, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, afternoon, morning, depending where you are in the world. You're very, very welcome. Goodbye, everyone. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And we end.